Hello and welcome to Pint Glass Gaming. As always, I'm your host Gary. Now, if you've watched any of our other content or listened to our podcast, you know that my favorite genre of game is the JRPG. This genre has given us so many classic experiences as gamers, including the Final Fantasy series, the Breath of Fire series, Dragon Quest, and some lesser-known titles like Lost Kingdom, or even Legend of Legaia. But amongst these games, all of which I've enjoyed, one series reigns supreme, and that is Atlus's Persona series. The first two Persona games are very different, and though I would recommend you play them, the Persona series that we know and love today all started with the PS2's Persona 3, which you can see here. Now, I always said that if Atlus got their shit together and remade Persona 3, it would be the best in the series. Now, we're fortunate enough today to be able to play that very game with the release of Persona 3 Reload. It's time for me to put my money where my mouth is. Is this remake the best JRPG of all time? Well, let's take a look. The storyline of Persona 3 has always resonated with me. Like in most modern Persona titles, you get to pick the name of your main character. I'm going to refer to the protagonist for the rest of this video by the name used in the Persona 3 anime, which is Makoto Yuki. In between midnight and 1 AM, there's an hour of time known as the Dark Hour. The vast majority of people are totally unaware of this hour's existence, as only those with the potential to summon powerful creatures known as Persona can usually experience it. People without this potential are transformed into coffins while this is going on, and foul creatures known as shadows prowl the streets. With other high school students, Makoto Yuki joins a group known as the Specialized Extracurricular Execution Squad, or SEAS, who seek to destroy the shadows and eliminate the Dark Hour. That's the basic gist of the story, but we'll talk more about the plot and the themes later. The first thing that any person returning to P3 Reload will notice are the updated graphics. This is more than just a fresh coat of paint, as the game has been totally rebuilt from the ground up. The character models are great, and the environments are well detailed. I never thought that the original Persona 3 was necessarily ugly, but seeing the modern character models and updates, well, it's just awesome. Now, I know that I can nitpick from time to time, but I will say that the characters look much better straight on than from a profile view. All of the characters look the same from the side, and they largely resemble the Moon Man from the classic McDonald's Big Mac Tonight commercials. Take a look here. In general, Atlus games look great, and this is no exception. There are some gameplay changes that are worth mentioning, and to be frank, I'm not totally in love with all of them. There are some new attack types called Theurgy attacks. These are a great addition to the game. The animation on them is really awesome, and they make the members of SEAS seem even more powerful, as well as adding an extra layer of tactics at your disposal to defeat your enemies. The original game was known for its PS2 era level of difficulty, and it seems to me that that's been toned down quite a bit. The game is easier overall, which though I admit may help newcomers, it's a bit of a disappointment for me. One of the reasons for this is the changes to the shuffle time mechanic. Shuffle time occurs after certain battles, especially after you do particularly well. A screen appears giving you a choice of tarot cards. Some of them give you more money or XP, some heal you, and others allow you to acquire a new persona for summoning. It has seen an improvement with the addition of major arcana cards, as well as XP, money, persona, and health rewards. The new major arcana cards are part of what makes the game a great deal easier, as some of its effects buff your party significantly. Some effects including amping up the power of all-out attacks, giving persona fusions additional XP, and allowing you to pick multiple arcana cards when you get shuffle time. I was cruising through the dungeon area, known as Tartarus, and shadows were fleeing me for a good part of the game because I was able to over-level due to this mechanic. Some people might like this, but it is a departure from the difficulty of Persona 3 overall. Persona 3, 4, and 5 are basically two types of games in one. Most players are going to be familiar with the dungeon delving and leveling of the RPG segments, but the other half of the games are high school life simulators. Each protagonist will gain power by establishing friendships with the people they meet along their journey. These relationships, known as social links, are little bits of storyline and character development, and each one is represented by a particular major arcana from a tarot deck. Some of the main characters in the original game were not a part of the social link system, so those characters lacked a fully fleshed out development or story arc. I'm happy to say that though not every character has a full social link, this game has incorporated new story segments with characters like Junpei, Akihiko, Ken, and everyone's favorite good boy, Koromaru. It seemed like the first game didn't really care about the other SEES members if you couldn't be in a romantic relationship with them. The new story segments let you see the motivations of these characters and are a great addition to the game. I think that the overall improvements are favorable, but my main complaint concerns a new item called Twilight Fragments. The original Persona 3 featured a fatigue system that made it more difficult to climb up the tower of the Dungeon of Tartarus. Remnants of this system remain, as after spending a night in the dungeon, you still get medicine from your school nurse to attempt to cure your fatigue. That system is gone from Reload. There are clocks situated at the entrance and randomly dispersed through Tartarus that allow you to restore your HP and MP. In the original game, you could pay these clocks with money, but now you have to use 7 Twilight Fragments. These items are in very short supply, and they also open rare chests. Some of these chests contain items that are basically useless. Some of them contain powerful medicine or weapons, and you won't know what you're getting unless you open them. This was super annoying. I don't like having to choose between gambling for good items and healing my party. You can collect Twilight Fragments around town, around Tartarus, or as a reward for furthering social links. If you like this change, cool, but it wasn't exactly for me. I've got to take a moment to mention the soundtrack of this game, as it features re-recorded versions of songs from the original, as well as altogether new tracks. The Persona series has some great soundtracks, and I'm happy to report that this game continues that tradition. I will say that I wish that the original songs were included as well, but that doesn't take away from how great the sound direction of this game is. Another great job. Thanks, Atlus. Now, why don't we listen to a little bit of the battle music?
It looks like you're distressed, Optimal.
The Persona series deals with some heavy themes, and the storyline here is a definite highlight. The color palette for this game is blue, which is symbolic in and of itself, and kind of encapsulates the attitudes of the characters at the start of the game. Persona 4 is a bit bubblegummy, and Persona 5 deals with the triumph of its team members ultimately, but this game is built differently. This game is about the inevitability of death. With few exceptions, every single character you meet in this game is dealing with loss in some way. Your protagonist lost both of his parents 10 years before the game starts in a car accident. Akihiko grew up in an orphanage and lost his sister in a fire. Yukari lost her father. I think you get the idea. The game takes place in a region called Iwatadai, which is strikingly similar to the phrase, "I want to die." Victims of Shadows in the Dark Hour are struck with the incurable apathy syndrome, which, though the victims are still alive, they shamble about like mindless zombies. As the game progresses, more and more people fall victim to this syndrome. The inevitability of death is built into every second of this game. Ticking clocks are pretty much everywhere, including the loading screens between gameplay sequences, and they are all counting down to the end. In fact, the first piece of dialogue that your character hears states, "No one can escape time. It delivers us all to the same end. You can't plug your ears and cover your eyes." Ultimately, this game is about the inevitability and acceptance of death. And oh boy, is it heavy. Even though this is a 20-year-old game, I feel strongly that any interested party should experience it, so I'm not going to get very specific when talking about the ending. What I will say is that from the day I first played through the original, the ending sequence has always stuck with me. It is the perfect ending for the journey of Makoto Yuki, and it is as beautiful as it is heartbreaking. The re-release of the original game was known as The Journey, so please remember that the destination isn't what defines this story. The story of Makoto Yuki is one of friendship, hope, and determination through impossible odds. death will come for us all sometime, but it's the journey and the relationships we cultivate along the way that makes this life worth living. I'll never forget the ending sequence of this game. It is etched firmly in my memory, and honestly, I envy new players who are able to experience it here for the first time. Though I have a few minor complaints, this game is everything I would have wanted in a remake of one of the greatest JRPGs ever created. If you have any love for this genre, I think it should be absolutely required playing. Persona 3 Reload not only receives the Pint Glass seal of approval, it joins my list of the best games of all time. Please check it out. This wraps up another episode of Pint Glass Gaming. Thank you if you've made it this far. If you liked what you saw, please, why not give us a like, a comment, and hit that subscribe button. It helps a lot. Until next time, game players, this is Gary, signing off.